chapter 9 of Horrorstör by Grady Hendrix. Chapter 9 is called Masonsic. This is what a Masonsic is. It appears to be some sort of shelving unit, and it says, "You need a closet that works for you, not the other way around. Our Masonsic system is the foundation of your day, creating order out of chaos. Let it take care of your clothes while you take care of yourself." And the story begins. Amy heard a distant click and her vision went black. The spotlights went dark, the exit signs, power indicator lights, everything. With no windows or skylights, the showroom was blacker than midnight, and Amy was blind, isolated from everyone else, lost in darkness. She stumbled backward and at some point realized that Carl had released her wrist. "The safety lights," a disembodied voice said. Amy recognized the voice. Basil was somewhere to her left. "No one can turn off the safety lights," he continued. "This is impossible." The showroom floor was massive, but Amy felt the walls and ceiling closing in. Her pulse was popping in her wrists, throbbing in her neck like a headache. But it wasn't the darkness that frightened her, it was the silence. Normally she could hear the endless roar of Orsk's air conditioning system blowing through the miles of ductwork, but now it was completely silent. The darkness was eating every sound, muffling it, muting it. The air felt warm and suddenly stale. "Use your phones," Matt said. Eerie blue light bloomed in the darkness as Matt powered on his iPhone and increased its screen brightness to the highest setting. Amy powered up her flip phone and realized that her battery was down to its last bar. She aimed the screen in Matt's direction and saw him squatting over a gear bag, rummaging inside. "It's got to be in here someplace," he said. "The safety lights never go out," Basil repeated, "not even in an earthquake." "This is worse than an earthquake," Amy thought. "This is something the Orsk engineers never anticipated." "Here." Matt switched on the mag light and cast the beam around the dining room display. That's when they discovered they were alone in the darkness. Except for a few spatters of blood and candle wax, the surface of the Franc was bare. "What the hell?" Matt said. "Oh, thank God," Basil sighed. "He's just injured." "That's not possible," Amy said. "You didn't see what we saw." Basil snatched the mag light away from Matt and shone it around the showroom floor, its beam bouncing across furniture and room displays, chasing away shadows. "Carl," he called, "can you hear me?" Amy turned to Matt. "This is crazy. You saw what happened. We need to go." If she had any courage, she would have walked out by herself, but the darkness was too complete. Her pathetic cell phone was too faint to guide the way. Amy had never been afraid of the dark or of ghosts or serial killers, but right now she felt small and vulnerable and surrounded by something hungry. Ruth Ann's talk of creepy crawlies echoed in her mind. They haunted the thick shadows, creeping closer and closer. "Amy's right," Matt said. "We have to go." "With an injured man bleeding all over the showroom? I can't do that, Matt." "He sliced open his throat," Matt said. "He killed himself." "If he was dead, he'd still be on that table." Basil stepped out on the floor, aiming the flashlight toward bedrooms. "Carl?" Amy turned to Matt. "Please, let's get out of here. We're safer if we go together." "I have to get Trinity," Matt said. "I can't leave her in here." "Fine, we'll go by the break area and get Trinity and Ruth Ann. Then we'll all leave together." "Carl!" Basil shouted with relief. "Are you okay?" Amy followed the beam of Basil's flashlight across the bright and shining path to the Sylbian bedroom display. It was purple with white trim that made it look like an elderly woman's guest bedroom, and Amy had always imagined that it smelled like lavender. In the back left-hand corner was a doorway leading to a short hall fitted with the Masonsic, sorry, that's like a weird word, Masonsic closet organization system. That's where Carl stood, staring at them. "You really scared us," Basil said. Amy could see the wound pulled across Carl's throat, his blood black in the flashlight beam. His eyes were bulging. One of his eyes had rolled up inside his skull so that only the white was showing, while the other stared sightlessly up and to the left. Still grinning, he stood completely motionless. Then Carl raised one hand and beckoned them closer. "Oh crap," Amy said. "We're getting out of here," Matt said. Carl slipped sideways into the walk-in closet, disappearing from view. Basil started forward, taking the light with him. Matt grabbed his arm. "Amy's right," he said. "This is crazy. Let's leave this for the professionals." "I am a professional," Basil said. "This is what being a professional means. You can't just walk away from a disaster and hope someone else cleans it up." He went after Carl, and Amy and Matt followed. Staying in the darkness was not an option. If Basil had the light, they had to follow. They stepped into the Sylbian bedroom, and the maple floor creaked beneath their feet. They walked to the rear of the bedroom display, the air getting thicker with each step, and rounded the corner into the narrow closet. The short hallway was designed to showcase the Masonsic closet storage system, a series of shelves, cubbies, drawers, and hanging rods that made optimal use of even the smallest space. 3 white dress shirts on display hangers swayed slightly in a cold breeze. At the end of the narrow purple hallway was another fake wooden door like the one Amy had shown Ruth Ann earlier, a cheap optical illusion cut into drywall to fool the eye. The door was ajar. I'm going to throw up, Amy said. Not on the stock, Basil said. It doesn't open, Amy said. That door doesn't open. It can't open. Basil pulled on the handle and the door swung open, revealing the entrance to a long, dark hallway. Until he'd opened the door all the way, Amy could pretend that maybe this was just a mirage, a weird shadow, something to do with the EMF stuff Matt had been talking about. But this was no trick. This hallway couldn't be here. This hallway was impossible. And if this door opened, what about the other fake doors? What about the fake windows? If she went around the store and lifted all the blinds, what would she see? A cold wind, putrid and marshy, blew out of the doorway, ruffling Amy's hair. She felt like she was standing in front of an open refrigerator full of rotten food. The display shirts swung wildly on their hangers. It was the Brooke smell again, the bathroom smell, the smell of the seance. This is a hallucination, Amy said, desperately wanting to believe her own words. You try to walk through that door and you'll break your nose. The glow from the mag light lit up the first few feet of the hall. Its white plaster walls were rank with yellow water stains. Its dirty floor was unfinished concrete. It stretched for 20 feet before taking a sharp turn to the right. Did you hear that? Basil asked. The 3 of them listened. I didn't hear anything, Matt said. It's Carl, Basil said. He's in there. Then he walked through the closet and stepped over the threshold, and the hallway swallowed him whole. Matt started to follow, and Amy grabbed his arm. Don't, she said. He's got the light, Matt said. We'll never find our way out in the dark. But this isn't the way out. This is the way in. It's all wrong. We have to stick together, Matt said. He twisted out of her grip, followed Basil into the closet, and entered the impossible hallway. Amy could see Matt and Basil, backlit by their flashlight, walking away from her down the corridor, and she hurried after them. At the end of the narrow Masonic, she hesitated and then stepped into the doorway. Immediately, the tight wall shut her off from the store like a fist closing around her skull. Matt and Basil were a few steps ahead, the wall at the end of the hall getting brighter as they got closer, the shadow of the corner bouncing up and down. Amy's feet crunched down the dirty hallway behind them. In the bright white circle of the light, the walls looked sick, covered in overlapping stains and mildew blooms. We need to get out of here, she said to their backs, panic bubbling in her voice. She didn't want to be scared, but it was a physically body-wide reaction she couldn't fight. Seriously, guys, the store doesn't go this way. This hall shouldn't be here. It shouldn't even exist. We should not be in here. Something shocked Amy's legs, and she jumped. Yeah. Matt and Basil instantly whirled around. It's my phone, she said gratefully, pulling the vibrating cell out of her pocket with both hands and showing it to them. Hello? This is the dispatcher at the Brecksville Police Department. Our unit still can't find the feeder road. Are you sure it's off Route 77? I drive here every day, Amy said. Don't you have GPS or something? The computer is showing that address you gave me is invalid, the dispatcher said. What does that mean? It means that according to our system, the address doesn't... The woman's voice cut off and the phone screen went black. Amy pressed the power button, but her phone was dead, useless as a brick. What did they say? Basil asked. I'm not sure they're coming, Amy said. We might be on our own. I know you two are panicking, Basil said, but we need to find Carl. He's not Carl anymore, Amy said. You weren't there. You didn't see what we saw. Trinity called out to all the spirits in the store. She invited them to join us. And something in this store took over Carl. He called himself a warden, a healer of souls. He said we were all penitents. Josiah Worth, Matt realized, turning to Amy. That's the guy I was telling you about earlier. The warden of the Cuyahoga Panopticon. The prison from the 19th century. Oh, enough with the ghost bomb crap, Basil said. Carl is a homeless man in severe mental distress. Per the Orsk Leadership Culture Handbook, we need to find him, comfort him, and call for medical assistance. That's official store policy. He aimed his flashlight down the hall. The guy's probably halfway up to bedrooms by now. This hall doesn't go to bedrooms, Amy said. It goes to the Beehive, to a 19th century prison. Please stop acting like this hall is normal. You must know that it doesn't exist. Of course it exists, Basil said. We're standing in it, aren't we? It could be a hallucination, Matt said. A product of EM fields or some kind of toxic venting. You really think so? Matt asked. Matt punched the wall as hard as he could. The impact shook loose a shower of damp plaster flakes. He unclenched his fist and shook out his hand. Nope, he said. I guess not. Please, Basil, Amy said. We have to turn around. I respect that you're a store manager and you've been trained for these situations, but I'm scared, okay? I'm your employee and I'm frightened and I'm asking for your help. Can we please turn around? Can we please find Trinity and Ruth Ann and get out of here? Basil hesitated, weighing the choice. Amy knew from taking the shop responsible test that Orsk managers had the responsibility to both store guests and store partners. But what if a manager had to choose one over the other? What was the priority? These were questions the test hadn't posed, and Basil was struggling. Tell you what, he decided. Let me just look around the corner. If I see bedrooms, we'll keep going. If I don't, I promise we'll turn around. Sounds good, Matt said. Go take a quick peek and we'll wait right here. Hurry, Amy said. Basil headed for the corner, taking the light with him. Amy stood still and tried not to touch the filthy walls. She could taste the swampy stink coating the roof of her mouth, turning her saliva bitter and sending it trickling down the back of her throat. You still there? She whispered. For a single terrifying moment, Matt didn't answer. Then he illuminated his face with the pale blue glow of his phone. Still here. Up ahead, Basil was pointing his flashlight around the corner. He hesitated, squinting into the darkness, playing the beam back and forth over something. Basil, Matt whispered. Amy heard it first. It wasn't quite a noise, but a displacement of air, a feeling of something big that filled the hall, something big that was coming up from the depths. It was the sound of far-off movement. It was the sound of something coming for them. Amy broke. Go, she said, turning around and running blindly into the dark, barreling back out of the hallway, shoulders banging into walls. Matt was right behind her, holding out his cell phone, supplying just enough light for them to see the doorway at the end of the corridor. Amy was certain it was going to slam shut at any moment, trapping them in the beehive for good. Then all at once they were outside, back in the clean, orderly world of Orsk, back in the narrow walk-in closet, surrounded by the Masonxic organization system. They kept running. They didn't wait to see if Basil made it out. He was on his own. They barreled out of the closet and into the room display, hit the bright and shining path at full speed, and didn't stop until they swerved off and collapsed behind an island counter and a kitchen's display. Matt buried the glow of his cell phone in the folds of his hoodie. Did you see them? He whispered. See who? In that hall, there were people. Amy didn't know what she'd seen and what she hadn't. They crouched behind the island, ears straining for any movement in the dark. What's that noise? Matt asked. Amy listened. She heard a gentle crystal ringing. Matt aimed his phone behind them at a shelf of Gland's water goblets, all quietly chiming against one another. Then she felt the rhythmic vibration in the floor. Something's coming, she said. Matt's cell phone flashed white. Its screen shattered. He lunged away from her and shattered glass smashed to the floor all around them as something invisible swiped the shelves clear. Amy ducked and squeezed her eyes shut as a torrent of shards rained down. Then there was silence. After a moment, Amy looked up. Matt, she whispered. He didn't answer. She couldn't see a thing. The store was completely black. She didn't even know which way she was facing. Matt, she whispered, please tell me you're here. No answer. Had he abandoned her in the dark? Was he crawling toward the front entrance right this second? And could she really blame him? Together they ditched Basil, and now Matt had ditched her. They were all on their own. Then she heard it, shallow breathing in the darkness. She lunged toward the sound and brushed Matt's shirt with her fingertips. Are you all right? She ran her fingers up his arm and felt cold, wet fabric caked with sand and grit. His flesh was cold. His skin was stone. And as Amy realized this person wasn't Matt at all, he was already pushing his rough fingers inside her mouth and toppling her to the floor. And that is the end of chapter 9. I'm going to read chapter 10 pretty soon here. So please tune in for that. We definitely have some interesting stuff coming up. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I will see you later. Bye.